How did my sister's wedding turn into a crime scene in under 20 minutes? My sister Emma was standing at the altar saying her vows when I noticed her groom Tyler kept checking his watch, not casually, but obsessively, like every 30 seconds. His best man Jake was sweating through his suit despite the air conditioning being set to Arctic levels in the church. I was sitting in the third row next to my parents, and something about the whole scene felt wrong in a way I couldn't pinpoint. Tyler's groomsmen were huddled in the back corner of the church whispering urgently to each other instead of watching the ceremony. One of them, a guy named Marcus, kept stepping outside to make phone calls, and I could see him through the stained glass windows pacing frantically. Emma looked beautiful and completely oblivious to whatever was happening with Tyler's side of the wedding party. She was crying happy tears while reading her vows about loving him forever. Tyler's responses sounded robotic, like he was reading from a script he barely remembered, and his eyes kept darting toward the church entrance every few seconds. The officiant asked if anyone objected to the marriage, and Tyler's mom actually stood up. Everyone gasped, but she just said she needed air and rushed out of the church. Tyler's dad followed her immediately, leaving their seats empty in the front row. Emma noticed and looked confused, but the officiant kept going with the ceremony. Right as they were about to exchange rings, Jake's phone started buzzing loudly in his pocket. He pulled it out, looked at the screen, and went completely white. He leaned over and whispered something in Tyler's ear that made Tyler freeze mid-sentence. Emma asked if everything was okay, and Tyler said yes, but his voice cracked. The church doors burst open and 3 guys in suits walked in fast, scanning the crowd like they were looking for someone specific. They weren't dressed for a wedding, more like they'd come from an office meeting. Tyler saw them and grabbed Emma's hand so hard she winced. Jake backed away from the altar and actually started moving toward the side exit. My dad whispered to my mom asking if those men were Tyler's relatives, but she shook her head looking just as confused as everyone else. The 3 men walked straight down the aisle, and people started shifting uncomfortably in their seats. One of the men pulled out his phone and showed something to the officiant, who looked shocked and immediately stepped back. Tyler let go of Emma's hand and his whole body language changed. He looked trapped, glancing between the side exits and the men approaching. Emma was asking what was going on, her voice getting louder and more panicked. The lead guy in the suit reached the altar and said Tyler's full name, followed by words I couldn't quite hear from where I sat, but then I saw it. The badge. All 3 men had badges clipped to their belts. My stomach dropped as Tyler put his hands up slowly, and Jake tried to make a run for the side door, but 2 uniformed officers I hadn't even noticed were already blocking it. Emma started screaming, asking what was happening, and Tyler's groomsmen were all being corralled by more officers who seemed to materialize from nowhere. My mom grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise, and guests were pulling out their phones to record everything. The lead detective, because that's clearly what he was, started reading Tyler his rights right there at the altar, while Emma collapsed into her maid of honor's arms, sobbing. The church erupted in chaos with people shouting and trying to figure out what crime had just been interrupted. And that's when the detective announced exactly what Tyler and his groomsmen had been doing for the past 6 months. The rest of the story is on my channel or linked below.